Good afternoon. The chicken box is back. We're back. I'm your host, Kevin Impeccable Peck, representing the Gen X. Man, is it already April? I should have came on with an April Fool's joke. I messed it up. But I have other people that I can play that joke on for the rest of the day. So if you're watching, yes, today is the very first day of April. And have you been a fool with your money? Let's put that out there for free. Today we're talking about black people versus wealth. All right, we might have a lot of definitions in our mind about what wealth is and what it means to you. But thank you for tuning in. If you popped up on the Afro Americans Facebook page, you are in the right place at the right time. Hit the share button, connect with us. We're going to be talking about some things that can maybe change your life as well as your family's life generations down the road. My co-host, Dr. Draper, Dr.
Good.
Francis, how are you this evening? Morning.
Hey, good
I all
afternoon.
of a sudden went to Africa or over to Europe. Is it evening over there yet? Yes, it is happening over there. But how are you feeling?
Well, it's afternoon where I am. I am feeling well. Thank you so much. So happy for another chicken box. Really, you know what? I'm happy for a little bit of a break from the nonstop watching of what's so hard to watch, which is the trial of Derek Chauvin, who murdered George Floyd. And so yeah, so that's also going on this week. So we want to acknowledge that. But I'm Francis Tony Draper and representing the baby boomers, and Misha and I go back and forth, but we both have some boomer and millennial characteristics. I have more boomer than millennial, and I think she has more millennial than boomer, but we got them both. So good to be here.
Absolutely, Misha, my millennial friend. Come on in. We got a action packed discussion. Black people versus wealth today. So tune in, chime in, jump in.
No, I'm really excited about today's conversation. I'm sharing the stream as always. And of course, guys, I encourage you tuning in to do the same. Make sure that you share the wealth of knowledge, no pun intended, that we'll be learning today with our amazing guests. So I don't even know where to start. There's so much I need to learn about today's topic. So I'm really excited.
Well, we have some amazing guests. If this is your very first time, the chicken box, if you're from Baltimore, you know it's 4 wings, fries, a little salt, pepper, ketchup, and maybe a half and half, which is half sweet tea, half lemonade. But if you've never heard of it, or you live outside of that area, this is where you get on the box and you speak your truth. You share your opinions as we break the stereotypes down, as we dispel myths about the Black community. So grab your lunch or your breakfast or your dinner, depending on part of the world, and you get it on a box. Sometimes you need a place where you can just come and vent about what is happening, not only in the community, or just what you think believed to be happening, and the box is here for you. So don't be a chicken, get on the box. Today, again, we're talking about Black people versus wealth, and we have two wonderful guests coming on. The first one is, I'm going to call her the wealth queen, Portia Wood. How are you? Joining us from LA, California. Lovely, love. No, not actually. You're on the beach from Laguna Beach. We have our guest streaming in from the beach. She is you know what? I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. She is my cousin too, y'all. So listen, this is the family thing. And as we talk about Black people versus wealth, but Portia, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what you do? You're gonna do a better job.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. My name is Portia Wood. I am a generational wealth planning attorney. My mom and I, as you know, are partners here at Wood Legal Group LLP. We are a multi-generational estate planning law firm, really focusing on educating and activating families, business owners, individuals to take an agency over their legacies and make sure that we are actually protecting what we are building in our lives and creating intergenerational wealth, particularly in the Black community, where we are actually failing at the wealth transfer game. So just happy to be here and share what I know.
Absolutely. Welcome, Portia. Hang out for the conversation. Welcome, Kimberly, John. Everybody else is tuning in as we get into Black people versus wealth. Man, Afro, we're doing a We're Still Here series, okay? And this is our Black Wealth Month, right? This whole month we're going to be focusing, and we're going to culminate in an issue that's going to be specifically about Black wealth. So this is a great month. This is a great day. It's the start of the new month. 4/1. It's starting to warm up, y'all. Hopefully no sun is in. I mean, it's none. Snow is anywhere in our future. The next guest we have, because we had to. And what generation? Why don't you tell them what generation you're representing, Portia?
So I am a millennial.
Uh-oh. We got two millennials together. That's always powerful. We're gonna introduce our last. We're gonna call him our number one chicken box friend, and this Mr. Byron Deese. Byron, how are you today?
That's right. I love the title, number one chicken box friend.
He is also
right.
a relationship development manager. But you know what? As I did with Portia, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself to the world of what you do and who you are, and then we can get into the conversation.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, Chicken Box family, everybody. My name is Byron Deese, relationship manager with Glass Jacobson Financial Group. By trade, I'm a retirement plan specialist, manage retirement plans for business owners throughout the region. And in particular, we're a tax, accounting, and investment advisory firm. And we really focus on providing CFO services for business owners, for entrepreneurs, people who are trying to figure out, what do I do with these assets? And how do we look at it from a portfolio management perspective? And so I'm having a lot of fun in that space and really having these types of conversations on a day-to-day basis. So thank you again for inviting me to jump in on this Black wealth conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to get right down to it. If you tuned in, share. We're here. Okay, I'm going to bounce past it to Portia. What is your meaning of wealth? Okay, and let's we can even drill down to the Black wealth.
Okay. Yeah. So in our firm, we say wealth is everything. It's everything you have. It's everything that you know. It is more than just the economics inside of your estate. It's more than just your stuff. We talk about it as being your shared experiences, your values, what you continue to share with your family and your community. Knowing the shoulders that you stand on can be as valuable as the dollars that are given to you, because what it does is gives you that self-worth and that family connection. And so wealth is all of that, not just the economics. And I think, I'm so thankful for being a part of this family, right? And the Afro, and having family members who wrote down what their goals were and why they did certain things, because it helps to guide my life and what I do going forward, knowing the people who came before me. And so it's just so powerful. So when we think about wealth, and particularly in the Black community, it is more than just money. It is all of it. It's how we've gotten here. It's how we've survived. It's how we continue to thrive and encourage. And so it's everything. It's your whole being.
Absolutely. You want to tune in on a quick piggyback on that, Byron?
Yeah, I completely agree. I try to think about wealth from a lifestyle. So it's your lifestyle. And, I remember hearing a game-changing phrase maybe about a decade ago from the great Jim Rohn, who said, when he talked about wealth and highlighting the difference between the rich and the poor, and poor people spend their money and invest what's left, and rich people invest their money and spend what's left. And when it comes down to the mindset of how are you going to, reveal your lifestyle from a money management perspective, from the things that you do, from the way you think about your transactions, your interactions, your money. And so if we can really begin the process of identifying our financial life from a lifestyle perspective and engaging in all the things that we do, as Portia mentioned, it is a good part of what we do every day. But what types of decisions are we making? And are we making decisions just for the here and now? Or are we also making decisions for the long term, the generational decisions that we all have an opportunity to make?
Absolutely. If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box, Black people versus wealth. Put in the chat your definition of wealth, of wealthy, of what you think wealth is. Have you ever thought about it? Do you think about it, or do you think about just meeting needs all the time? Are you thinking about just making money the whole time? What is your thought on wealth? Okay, as we get into it, this is the Chicken Box. I'm going to ask my co-host real quick, 30 seconds. Misha, what do you think? What do you feel what comes to mind when you hear the word wealth?
Well, until my amazing job, the Afro American newspapers made me think about it. I always thought it was money, and luckily, I have a lot of great bosses who I can also look to as mentors and help me think. And so, we were posed the question, "What is wealth to us?" And for me, it is definitely not dough that I'm rolling in, but I had to think about the fact that joy is wealth for me, and family and love is a sense of wealth. And so while I am really excited about learning how to build generational wealth and save my money better and create more assets, I definitely am also really excited to know from the experts, Portia and Byron, that wealth is far more than the money that's in my account or in my pocket. So I'm learning a lot about wealth, and I'm hopping off the box.
Boom, Dr. Draper, wealth. You guys put it in the chat. What comes to your mind when you hear that word? Somebody says they're wealthy, or do you compare those to being rich? But Dr. Draper.
Okay, before I jump in, I want to give a little disclaimer. There are people behind me who are banging. So if you hear some banging, that's right here in my house, right? And so wealth is more than money. So a lot of times we think about money and sometimes we accumulate money, or we get money and we just spend it, as opposed to thinking about what we can do to perpetuate either our name, our legacy, our business, our brand. As so many people that everything rose and it was rising and falling on just what they did, and nothing was left. Let me say a little bit about wealth through this example. The Afro-American newspaper has been around for 129 years. We've heard that every chicken box as of this August. We didn't just start this. In other words, this was something that was started by people who had much less money than probably everybody watching this and who's not watching this combined. They started with $200, but in their minds, when they started this business, it was so that anybody in the family and extended families who wanted to have a job could work. That's wealth. It was to pass on legacies and information about the African American community. That's wealth, because other people weren't writing about us. So that's preserving. And so for me, wealth is preserving legacies, generation to generation. And yes, it includes money, but it's not just money.
I like what Niche says. Breaking through generational curses can be wealth as well. Jewel is tuning in. Kimberly's still hanging out with us. Byron, you in the chat and you on here live. That's why I say, listen, every time we go live, he's here. He's here. That black thumb goes up. We know Byron's in the building, but he's actually in the building because he is a financial expert and we'll say relationship development manager. I like that. You know what I mean? We changed the name, but it's still, we talk about getting your money right, everybody. And listen, all money is not good money. We were talking about this before we decided to do this topic. And Misha, you brought up something, and we're going to touch on it for a second. We're going to get Portia to chime in on it too, on her thoughts. But let's get to do y'all think all money is good money? All right, let's get to the current quick news. What's up, Emerson?
Listen, let me weigh in. All money is not good money. And so I have a principle that it's almost like a commandment. Thou shalt not compromise your integrity for a paycheck. There's some things that you ought to have.
Thou shalt not compromise your integrity for a paycheck.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's write that down. But Misha, let's get into this whole thing with these sneakers. And have y'all heard about this whole thing?
So I'm also writing this down because I'm the geek I am. Thou shall not compromise your integrity for a paycheck is what I'm writing for a second, and then I will weigh in on this. But I have to be the geek that I am and make sure I get this.
But while we're doing, we got our special guest, Portia Wood, while she's geeking out over there. And Portia is, if y'all haven't gotten on Clubhouse, she is the Clubhouse queen, amongst other things, right? But she has a room called the Black Trust Fund Kids. Portia, please enlighten us on the Black Trust Fund Kids.
Thank you. Yeah, the Black Trust Fund Kids is really just a collection of Black estate planning attorneys. We've come together to really try to normalize the conversation around intergenerational wealth transfer in the Black community. Approximately 70% of African Americans have zero estate planning at all. And so we are failing at the wealth transfer game. We are losing the majority of our earned wealth every time somebody gets sick or passes away because we don't have the tools in place, right? Approximately about $2 billion is lost annually, nationally, just by going through a probate process. And probate can be 100% avoidable if you have a proper estate plan in place. And, it's important for us to remember, particularly in the Black community and particularly as Black people, that we used to be the wealth that was being passed down in estate plans. And so when we got our freedom, we didn't get that same education on how do we hold on to property. We got the idea of home ownership is important. We got the idea that you need to own land, you need to own, but we were never taught how to keep. And that's a rule, that's a tool of the rich, right? The laws are the tools of the rich. So understanding how not just to hold property, but how to keep it, and also how to minimize your taxes. And so all of that were things that we were never taught, and we are just now starting to learn. And so those are some of the conversations that we are normalizing inside of the Black Trust Fund Kids rooms, and having those conversations, because every state is different, right? You have the federal laws, but each state has its own set of state laws about how property passes. And so making sure that we've got a diverse group of people coming in, really addressing those issues. But yeah, just really normalizing the conversation about how we protect wealth and talk about it within our families and our communities. So that's what we do there at the Black Trust Fund Kids Club.
I love the Black Trust Fund Kids. That means you're thinking beyond yourself, right? You put kids in it, which means that we should be thinking about our future and what we're going to leave. Like Dr. Draper said, the Afro did over 128 years ago. We're also talking about Black people versus wealth. We're talking about your mindset. And if you're looking to get your plans, estate plans, and your trust plans in full effect in Maryland or California,
or DC or Virginia.
Oh, okay. Okay, she's barred everywhere,
Yeah.
y'all. She's gonna be barred in the
No,
whole
that's not me. No, we got a new attorney in our office, and so we've got DC and Virginia as well. Don't put that on.
Absolutely. So we're gonna get into the conversation. We pitched it to Misha about is all good money, is all money good money, and we've heard the term dirty money before, but that's all how your mindset goes. But Misha, what's the hottest thing right now about some money?
So, right. I think that this conversation is so important to have as we talk about Black wealth, because again, all money is not good money, as we've been saying. And right now, the artist Lil Nas X, some of you guys may know him from Old Town Road fame, just released a pair of tennis shoes called Satan shoes. And I believe they were over $1,000. I will fact check it, but over $1,000 for the shoe. They sold out in they sold out in less than 60 seconds, and they only sold 666, which just, as you know, Satan shoes and 666, just, I mean, it also is quite scary and demonic sounding. On top of these shoes, though, it had a fake Nike check sign. And so now Nike is suing Mischief, which is the brand that released these tennis shoes by Lil Nas X. And I just also want to add that 6 members, I believe, of their staff donated blood so that a drop of blood could go in the sole of each of these 666 shoes that were sold. So right now, Nike is selling Lil Nas X. It is a major scandal on top of the scandal surrounding the demonic undertone of the shoes itself. And so a lot of people are saying over the internet that all money is not good money. And a lot of celebrities are even coming out who had similar, not quite as extreme as Satan's shoes, but similar issues in which they felt that they were basically selling their artistry to the industry and not necessarily thinking about their values or beliefs that let's even beyond Christian values, just good and putting good into the world. And as Rachel said, it is quite sick. But besides the demonic nature, is that good money? Was it worth that? Now Nike, which is a huge company, is suing Mischief. I'm interested in hearing from the experts, but as well as you all in the comments. This is quite an interesting issue for Lil Nas X right now.
We're going to take a couple minutes. If you want to chime in, Byron, you want to say something? Have you seen this?
You know what? It's interesting. My daughter mentioned something about this morning, but I had no clue of what this was all about. But I think at the same time, you know, it's two situations when you think about good and bad press. At the end of the day, the name, we wouldn't even know what this was about. This is new news to me, but now it's in my lexicon. It's something I'm thinking about. And from a marketing perspective, that's what businesses want you to know. They want you to know about them, whether the good or the bad. And so you kind of put that into one context. The other thing is, you know, whenever you have assets like that, you know, you want to, you know, give it a job. You know, you want to make sure that this asset is earning X amount of rate of return on the investment. So they may have an actual plan around, this could be the plan. And if this is the plan, it worked because we're talking about it. But at the same time, there's going to be a demographic of folks like probably most of us here who are saying, why would anybody do that? But at the same time, they did sell all the product. So it's one of those situations where we may not particularly agree with all of the various business entities and the products that businesses are putting out there. But if they have a target market that they're trying to reach and they hit that number, then they accomplish the goal that they set out from a business perspective.
Okay. That's a good perspective. Some people are tuning in with some other things. We got Craig Talley joining, Rachel joining in, Niche still talking about life insurance. Portia, you want to touch this, or let's get back to the Black people versus?
Yeah.
Well,
you know, I've got to agree with Byron, right? Like from a marketing standpoint, it's genius because everybody's talking about it. I don't know who Lil Nas X is, but I've seen rooms on Clubhouse. I've seen rooms, you know, people on Instagram lives talking about it. And all of a sudden, there was a conversation everywhere about this stunt. And let's be clear, you don't put a Nike check or a Nike looking check on a product anywhere and not expect to be sued for trademark infringement at all. And the fact that they only put out 666 is also a marketing tool, right? Because what's the trademark lawsuit going to do except stop them from being able to produce any more shoes, as well as maybe take some of the proceeds that they got and maybe some economic fines. But if they can never produce another amount of shoes, there will always be 666 that somebody owns, which then creates an intrinsic value in those shoes as an asset that keeps going up. And so there's never any more. Nike has sued them. There's a whole lawsuit about it. And if you were one of those people who got this $1,000 shoe, the value of that shoe, the scarcity of it, has just driven the price up. So the secondary market that everybody's talking about, now they want this shoe that I don't even know what it looks like, is more valuable than what you just bought it for. I mean, from that standpoint, it's brilliant. Nobody goes into it being like, I think Nike's going to let me get away with this. No, there has to be, and I'm speculating because this is the first time I've heard about this, but the first thing that comes to my mind is they're trying to create a market and then scarcity. And what better way than to get a Nike, the shoe giant, right? Nike is the shoe giant, particularly in our community. And then you take them and they're suing. They've just now created a custom limited edition shoe for this artist and for that company.
Boom.
I mean, from that standpoint, it's brilliant. Is all money good money? No, right? But it's not what I would do. But I can understand why somebody would do that.
Absolutely. And that, and that will take us to different places, right? Because people will do different things, whether even vote Republican and you're mad at them. You know what I mean? And, and everybody's not going to have the same values. Everybody's not going to think the same. And everything that somebody else does is not going to agree with everything that you do. Now, can they create wealth off of this? I mean, if they take this money and move it to there, can they make it from just, I've made some money? We've heard about, the people who Diane says no integrity. Absolutely. But, but the people with no integrity don't care about integrity.
I would also say that as Black people, sorry, Byron, just one sec. I would say as Black people, we're also not a monolith, right? Like what we believe to be good or clean or putting out into the world is based on our own values. And we don't all think, as you were just saying, Kevin, we don't all think the same. We don't all believe the same things. We don't all have the same ideas. And while we can sit here in this conversation and say, oh, well, there's these demonic undertones and there's all this other stuff. There are a lot of artists who have engaged in that, who hold those beliefs. There's a lot of members of society at large that hold those beliefs and believe in different things and don't necessarily see those symbols as being representative of what other people see them as. And so we are then right now in this conversation importing our own values and ideas onto what that is without actually any understanding of what they actually intended or the purpose. Now, I don't know, they might have intended that 100%, but we don't actually know that, right? And so we're having this conversation from our own viewpoint and putting something negative on it where maybe their intention was something positive. And I mean, I can't speak to it. I don't know. But I would just say, as a reminder, we are not a monolith. And so
for sure.
We gotta let Byron jump in real quick because I think, Portia, don't you have to go?
Yes, I do. I saw someone pop up about life insurance, and I just want to highlight that really before I leave. The importance of life insurance, particularly in the Black community, cannot be overstated. It is a necessity, and we should be talking about it in our community day in and day out. And let's be clear, it is not limited to the life insurance that you get through your job. Generally, that is wholly insufficient. One, if you lose that job, then you've typically lost that benefit. If you retire, you may not get it to come with you. It's also often not enough. It's usually 1, 2 years maybe of salary. And if you've got minor kids or you've got a mortgage or any of these things, that's insufficient, right? I've got a 3.5-year-old. If I only have 2 years of salary, he'll be 5.5. What happens to him for the rest of the time if I don't have enough life insurance to support him? And I can't put that onus on the guardians that I pick, right, in my estate plan. I can't make them financially responsible for my child. They didn't plan for that. And so it is our obligation to ensure that we have the right amount of insurance for what we need. And let's be clear, we will insure our $1,000 cell phones. We will insure these laptops, right? Like we'll insure our laptops, but we're not going to insure our lives. We don't think that we intrinsically have value that we bring to our households. It's a ridiculous concept. Of course we do. And so making sure that we have the right amount of insurance for what we need is important. I would say, take your average salary, whatever you make in a year, multiply it by 20. That's approximately how much insurance you need. But from a wealth building perspective, let's say you make $100,000 a year. Okay, you need $2 million of insurance. Great. Not indexed for inflation, not assuming you're going to make any more money in your lifetime, like any other raises, but let's just take simple numbers. you give me that $2 million and we put it inside of a trust. You die, it goes into a trust. We restrict that principal so that it can't be squandered, can't be spent. It's now being invested, right? That's the role. Even at a 5% return, you created $100,000 a year in interest income for life. And then for the life of your grandchildren. And then for the life of your great-grandchildren. Because that's how you can set up your estate plan. And we don't even have life insurance at all. You can put life insurance on your babies the moment they're born. The moment my son was born, he got his first life insurance policy. It continues to cash accrue. By the time he is 20, it will be fully paid up. I will never put another dollar in it, and he'll have it for the rest of his life. It has cash value in it. When he's 30 and wants to go buy a house, he can bank on himself, right? So we have to understand how these things work. There are no perfect products. It is all about what your goals and what you're trying to achieve. But you've got to understand what's available and how it works, because otherwise we are failing.
Life insurance experts, email editor@afro.com. Portia, you brought up a great point. Black people versus life insurance. That's coming. It might have to come this month because that is a whole entire show. We thank you for tuning in. We want to respect your time. Wood Legal Group. Contact Portia. She will get you straight. And if you don't think you need to be straight, you will be straight after you talk to her, and you'll realize that you're not straight. Okay? So here's the problem. We don't get straight. We hear the information, and then a tragedy happens unexpectedly, and we had to go fund stage. We asking people to help, and all because we didn't put a plan in place. Okay, so if this is for you to hear this, only for this 30 seconds, it's for you, Portia. Thank you. I'm going to respect your time. You know what? We'd love to have you on for the whole time. Thank you for having me. But thank you for jumping on from the West Coast, and much love. And we'll continue to push forward your agenda at the Afro. All right, back to it with Black people versus wealth. Black people versus wealth. Here we go. We were 5, now we're 4. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, the chicken box is still going on. We're speaking our truth. We're learning. All money, not good money, depending on who you're talking to, okay? Because to some people, they think that same money is good money, but eventually they'll find out if they live long enough that it really wasn't good, except for the moment that they thought it was. But Misha, I'm going to bring you back in. Jump on in. What stereotypes are you hearing on the street, or what's on your mind? It looks like you really got something that you really want to get off your chest about what we're talking about. I just
want to fact check again one more time. It was indeed $1,018, and it is a reference to Luke 10:18 on the shoe, which is obviously an actual verse, which talks about a fallen angel. Is that correct, Dr. Draper? It's the fallen angel going descending to hell, but then it's also written on the shoe, Luke 10:18. So just wanted to fact check. Indeed, the shoes were 1,018. And though Portia said we're not positive what the symbols meant, only because there was a whole music video and the shoe was called Satan shoes, I gotta say, I don't think it's a bit of a stretch to know what that symbol was.
That's intentional.
Yeah, that was quite intentional. That was quite intentional. So yes, let us go into the world of stereotypes. And I want to say first, before we go into the stereotypes itself, just to give the Webster's definition of what wealth is, which varies very different, I think, from Portia and Byron's, which theirs seems far more holistic than what Webster's gives. But here it is: an abundance of valuable material possessions or resources, abundant supply, all property that has a money value or an exchangeable value, all material objects that have economic utility, and especially the stock of useful goods having economic value in existence at any one time. So I must emphasize these are general stereotypes and not necessarily views of the Afro, but these stereotypes are generally based off of that Webster's definition of wealth. So Black wealth is a new phenomenon is one stereotype. Also that there are systemic structures that prevent Black people from being wealthy. Only Black people with certain opportunities can be considered wealthy. Black people primarily become wealthy from being an athlete or entertainer. wealth is primarily reserved for white people in America. Black people don't spend money in their own community. Black people don't give back to their community. Black people are too obsessed with spending to not understand wealth. And Black people have been oppressed too long to have true generational wealth.
Let's see what do you guys think? You guys still with us? Have you had to jump on another Zoom for your job or something? If not, come back and check us out. But right now, if you're still with us, tell us the stereotypes that you've heard, or do any of these ring a bell with like, hey, I've heard this one before. How about you, Byron? Did any of these stereotypes jump out at you?
I mean, this most of them, to be honest with you, and it's sad, and it really is probably why I ended up going into the world of financial services in the first place. I remember, back in 1987 when the stock market crashed, and I remember watching the news with my mom and hearing about all of these stockbrokers who, and wealthy people who were committing suicide and all these different things because of the stock market crash, because all of their assets were depleted in a couple of minutes. And I asked my mom, why aren't we upset about this? Why? And she's like, because we don't have any money in the stock market. And I was, about 10 years old at that time, or about 9 years old at that time. But ever since that point, I started trying to figure out what's the difference between the average, everyday working class person and those who have wealth. And how do I, if I do create wealth, how do I avoid being that person who committed suicide because they lost it all in the stock market? And it's so interesting because, and a couple of things that I wanted to hit earlier is we have to look at wealth from a average, everyday employee perspective, as well as from a business owner's perspective. And when we think about what this whole Little Nas X situation, and also it made me think about our good friend Kanye West. Kanye West is someone who, we all say ever since his mama died, he went crazy. And so, and it's one of those situations, he always does something that makes us think this dude is nuts. But then it comes out last week that he's now the wealthiest African American in America. Over $6.6 billion. His likeness and his investment with another company, which was all stock deal. And so the valuation of that particular stock equated to $6.6 billion. So you think about what these guys are trying to do is to market an asset. And when your personality, you are the asset. They now have these different types of investment tools where you can take your own property, whether it be as an artist or an actor or whatever, an NFL player, and take it public, and through SPACs, and you're able to do that now. So there's a whole new focus on these individual assets that you have. What does it take to increase the valuation of those assets from a business owner perspective? But then now you also have that person who's the everyday, the working class person who's saving money, trying not to spend too much, but trying to have something that they can use over time. And I love what Portia said. When there's just some prerequisites that we have to do. We have to make sure that we have life insurance. We have to make sure we have a will. So if you care about generational wealth, and I'll be honest with you, I work with a lot of clients who are business owners who are doing really well, but generational wealth isn't something that they're quickly thinking about. And even in trying to encourage them to think about it, it may not be at the top of their priority list. And this is something that we all have to identify and say, what do we want? We're doing great right now, but what do we want to happen to these assets, to our resources if we were to pass away?
Absolutely. Listen, this is Black people versus wealth, not Black people versus money. Now, Black people, we can get excited about some money. We start talking about, do you know what the lottery is up to now, right? Do you know, if we start talking about money for real, and then if we start talking about stimulus, you know what I mean? If we start talking about money, you getting excited about getting some money. I mean, even at work, some overtime, some bonus money, some extra commission money, some money that somebody left you. We're going to be excited. Somebody died. You didn't ever call them. You never saw them, but they had enough heart to leave you something, and now you're excited about that money that they left. We get to talking about wealth. We get to talking about the generation, like leaving thing and planning. Come on, y'all. We gotta get excited about that. You gotta think about it. And if you didn't know when this pandemic hit that your money was funny, if you worked for yourself, if you didn't have a year, 2 years, could you live in the pandemic without working anywhere for 2 years? Do you have enough wealth? Do you have a plan in place that's making you income that you can live through a pandemic, which most of us found out we can't. Most of us are a paycheck away or two from poverty, from foreclosure, from our car being repoed. We have to think differently about how we plan, about how we do. Now, let me get to the history, okay? All money ain't good money. That's what I'm talking about. The number one saying, boom, with them bones. If y'all know about dominoes, all money ain't good money. Anyway, that's for all of y'all bones players out there. But Dr. Draper, bring us into, when did we start to think about wealth from a historical perspective as African Americans or Black folk?
Well, we started thinking about wealth a long time ago. For some of us, Black wealth is not necessarily new. We need to know that, but we also need to know that it is true. The rich are still in 2021 getting richer, right? And the wealth gap is increasing. However, historically, you had people like Frederick Law Olmsted, who wrote in 1956, after a steamboat trip down the Cane River in Louisiana, that they're also in the vicinity, he wrote, a large number of free colored planters. And so those planters were from various places and they acquired wealth and property. And then there was a guy named Jeremiah Hamilton, who was a wealthy Black man during the 19th century and was the richest non-white man in the country when he died in 1875. So he was an African-American Wall Street broker, Byron, in the mid 1800s. But guess what? He wasn't liked on either side of the aisle, right? And so white folk called him names, Black folk called him names, right? But he had the money. And a little bit later, we've heard this name. Madam C.J. Walker was a major millionaire is, but she was a Black millionaire in the early part of the 20th century. And so in 2013, Blacks were 8% of the United States millionaires. So flip that script. We were 92% not of the millionaires, right? And so 7 Black billionaires, Kanye West, Byron just called out his name, David Stewart, Jay-Z, Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, Robert Smith, Tyler Perry. You know, if you're going to call out Jay-Z, you got to put Beyonce in there somewhere, right? But so the wealth gap, as I said, the typical Black family has just one.
I think you got frozen for a second.
Did I get frozen?
I got frozen.
You got frozen.
Are we still live, y'all?
Yeah, we're still
okay.
live.
You know, look, if you on a live stream and your Zoom cuts off, you don't know who. He's like, you checking, you looking at your internet box. Look, we talking about Black people getting money. They're gonna cut our internet off, y'all. Anyway, we're gonna get this information out. Dr. Draper, you froze. We all thought that we were freezing. We all had to check out. We said, wait a minute.
No, Dr. Draper was going. I think it was you.
It was me. I didn't pay my Comcast. I'm sorry. Anyway.
Well, that's because we don't own a Comcast, right? You have to own it. But
absolutely. All right. I'm sorry for interrupting me.
But
my geek speed hardwired froze maybe. But anyway, I'm back.
Opportunities to wealth and the pathways to wealth, regardless of those examples that I just lifted up, are slim. And so we talked about the fact that so many of us are not prepared to transfer wealth. And some people have the mindset, well, I got mine, you got yours to get, so I'm gonna spend mine now and worry about you when you get there. But the problem is when we die, the legacy dies with us. Everything dies and does not continue. And so we don't have anything. And so then people are building again from scratch. And so when I talked about the Afro having wealth, I wasn't talking necessarily about money. All right, I'm not talking, so I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. I'm not talking necessarily about money, but I'm talking about the capacity to own business and a capacity to create wealth for generations. And there you have it.
There you have it.
I'm off the box.
I'm not frozen. Anyway, thank you everybody for telling me I wasn't. You know, it happens like that. Listen, there is an opportunity as the information is more readily available, and there's an opportunity for you to seek the information from experts like Byron Deese and Portia Wood. It's the Afro's responsibility for over 128 years to make sure the information's out there. So you can't say, I didn't know. So that's why we say share the information. And sometimes you may know, but when you share it, one of your friends might not know. And so it might help them get their mind, because you have to have a mindset around wealth, you know what I mean, of how you put a plan together. And sometimes it may be a little uncomfortable depending on your budget. But in the long run, when you wrap your mindset around a wealthy mindset, even before you're wealthy, all business owners will tell you, even before they owned their business, they saw themselves owning their business. They saw themselves successful. They saw themselves being on stage singing to thousands of people. They saw themselves visiting homes and cleaning carpets. They saw themselves helping you get your drain unclogged or whatever else that you had to do. They saw business. Hey, we saw Misha twice. Hey, Misha. They saw themselves streaming during a pandemic. They started these businesses and they put on the mindset of wealth. And so until we put that mindset on, you're going to be in the same situation, and we're going to repeat cycles. I'll call it poverty thinking to generations when we should be instilling wealth thinking. And it's all because of, we'll use the word ignorance, but not in that form, but meaning just lack of knowledge. But the information is here, and now is the time to start digging. It's not too late. I don't care how old you are, to put a plan together of how we accumulate wealth so that we can pass it along and become stronger in the next generation. So, Misha, Byron, jump in.
Yeah, I wanted to just jump in real quick and just kind of highlight a couple fundamental things that we can do quickly, and which is so important. You hit the nail on the head, because it all begins with the mindset and an idea. And if we get to the point where we're not creating from an idea perspective, we're not seeing ourselves beyond where we currently are, then it's going to be very difficult to create wealth. Because we see, if you're kind of a here and now person and say, well, this is what I got and that's what I'm always going to have, it's going to be very difficult to create wealth. So number one, if going back to that original point, you see yourself as a poor person, or you see yourself as a wealthy person? Wealthy people invest their money first and spend what's left. And so you say, oh, that is a mind-blowing concept. It doesn't have to be, because you can take the word, even if you don't know how to invest, and just replace the word invest with save. Well, wealthy people save their money first and spend what's left. And put yourself in a position where, if you know that whatever your job pays you, and you say, well, I'm going to live on 70% of that money, but the rest of it I'm going to save. And I'll talk to an advisor to figure out what's the best tax efficient way to do this and that. But just from a raw concept, I'm going to save 30%. I'm going to live off this 70. And then you also tell yourself, I want to have multiple streams of income. And I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I want that in my life. That is something that's going to happen, because you said it, you believe that it's going to happen, and say, I want multiple streams of income. And then before you know, the ideas for multiple streams of income will happen into your life. And so we have to just fundamentally identify, like, am I putting myself in a good position to create these things that I say I want? And then you have to ask yourself, well, what are you actually going to do with it? What's the purpose? It's to create wealth. Like, what are your goals around creating wealth? Do you want to make sure it's passed down to your family for generational purposes? Do you want to give away a lot of your money, and support organizations that need it? Give yourself a real big vision goal as to what you want to do when you accumulate these things. And then on top of that, figure out with what you already have, how can you start doing some of that stuff right now? And when you get in the rhythm of doing some of the things that really matter to you right now with the pennies that you have, it's going to become a beautiful thing, because you're already a steward of what you got. So it's exciting to see when the mindset and that lifestyle clicks in, everything else just starts to roll.
Man, I heard the music when you were talking about it, and you wanted to get in that wealth rhythm. Boy, where has the time gone? You got to get in the rhythm. People get in the rhythm of going to the lottery line. They
That's
get in
right.
the rhythm to a lot of things that are not increasing their wealth. Let's get into the rhythm of creating wealth. Man, Afro fact. This is, you know, we can look back in our extensive archives and see what happened at a particular time in a particular year. And I'm always excited. I know we're talking about Black people versus wealth, but let's just see if we looked in the archives. Misha, what did you discover this week as an Afro fact?
Well, this week's Afro fact is inspired by the April 3rd, 1965 edition. And can I just say that edition might as well be called the Dr. King paper, because the whole front page has photos and stories about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. In that edition, there's a story about a man named Elder Solomon Michaud, who was picketing against Dr. King in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference convening in Baltimore. According to the article, Elder Michaud was questioned why he was so hard on King and picketing him. And the article says that when he answered, and I quote, he brought biblical quotations and unclear but lengthy ramblings concerning communist infiltrators. The reporters said that it seemed that the elder was protesting against King's call for an economic boycott in Atlanta. Everybody has haters, I guess. And that's this week's Afro fact.
Wow.
Wow.
Everybody has haters. I'm thinking of that name Elder. Is anybody naming their kids Elder? Is that still up on the list?
You know,
I don't know. I'm just.
I was
No, he was an elder. His first name was Solomon.
Oh, okay.
The king. The king. Okay.
So when Misha was sharing that fact, though, I was thinking about economic boycotts still coming out of Atlanta and Georgia for the governor signing of that modern day Jim Crow law that disenfranchises. We have to have a chicken box on that. So now the big corporations are starting to step up. But speaking of Black wealth on this topic, it was the African American business people, the African American millionaires, the African Americans who have voice in this country, who got together. Ken Chenault, who used to be the CEO of American Express, pulled people together and said, listen, pull Black people together. We cannot stand silently by and allow what's happening in Georgia to continue. And so we as African American business people of some stature, including Robert Smith, signed off on a letter challenging Delta and Coca-Cola and the other businesses that are headquartered in Atlanta, talking about Black wealth. They put pressure on them to speak out about what's happening in Georgia. And because of that, see, this, when we talk about Black wealth also gives you influence. All right, money still talks. And so these men and women, African-American men and women said, we're not afraid to speak up. You know, Delta, you may be afraid to speak up. Coca-Cola, you may be afraid to speak up, but we're going to impact your bottom line in a negative way if you don't. And so now slowly, if we're watching, as journalists, we're watching this unfold. These corporate heads of the companies that are headquartered there, Home Depot as well, they're now putting out these statements. Before, they were little wishy-washy statements. Oh, yeah, maybe the governor shouldn't. But now they're putting out stronger statements. This is the power of wealth, and it's the power of Black wealth right here now. And so you talked about that story from the 60s. Dr. King's economic platform there was some pushback, but we still have that power today.
Boom.
I want to throw one quick thing in there, because
throw it in there, Byron.
So a great point to that is Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Powernomics. And Powernomics highlights the role that Black people, wealthy or non-wealthy, that we can do to go back to what some of you guys mentioned earlier, as to how do you create economic power, which now becomes political power. And that's exactly the point that you make, because if you have economic power, money still talks to the politicians, money talks to those institutions, those companies who still need us as Black consumers to participate in their businesses. And so if we can really begin to move in an organized way, it's unbelievable what Black people can do in this country to attain wealth. And we've already proven what Black people can do from a political perspective.
Absolutely. And we need to learn that the Powernomics by Claude Anderson, but also we have to learn, as you said, the power of our collective pushback. There's some products, if Black people don't buy them, the business will go out under.
It's a wrap. That's right.
Hello,
That's right.
somebody with beauty on their name in the hood. Anyway, that none of us make the products that are controlled and strong-held by the Koreans, but they come in, they set up in the Black community. Anyway, that's a whole nother show. But listen, we got to get it together, and we have to. We're gonna get on the box, y'all. We've had a great day. We got about 5 minutes left. We got Ann, she agrees. Jules hanging out. Rachel down here in Atlanta throwing out all of the knowledge. And Dr. Dre, when they apologized, they were like, we were bamboozled. We had it completely wrong. We had no idea. And we have caucused and we have talked to our Black employees. And we now realize that we're about to lose a lot of money. So we better come up with this press release quickly because we know how fast the African-American dollar can affect you. And see, the thing about it is we have to know the power that we have with our money.
Okay, so Kevin, look, all those excuses they make, I was born a while ago. It just wasn't yesterday.
Absolutely. Guess what? I heard what they said. They said, our bottom line is about to be affected.
We have to make them say, before that.
Absolutely.
That's another whole show.
Well, yeah, but the thing about it is they have to have somebody that thinks like that before that, because they decide to spend their money the way they want to spend it on things that we don't even know they spend their money on. This just happened to be something that got out.
That's why I lobby, and Byron knows this. I lobby for African Americans to be in those corporate boardrooms. We have to stop allowing us not to be at the table. Let me flip the script. We need to be at the table. There are plenty of qualified African Americans to be at the table of these corporations, to be their conscience. Obviously, some of them need a conscience. But speaking of that, I'm going to yield my time on the box to Misha, the rest of it. I want Misha to talk about this edition that we have coming up that's going to focus every single page in this edition of the Afro that's coming up in a couple of weeks is going to focus on African-American wealth. Misha, you want to say a little bit about that? And I'm off the box.
Here, let's let Misha go last.
Okay.
That'll be the last though. Look, I'll go. Listen, get your wealth mindset on. Stop trying to just make money for today, to do something today. Let's make money that we can buy assets that make us money to buy our dream, to fund our dreams. Okay, let's make money to buy assets and direct it to people like Byron and Portia to show us how to take these assets. When you see those things pop up on the internet, millionaire pays no taxes legally. You're like, what? How did they do that inside the law? If you've seen the tax law, it is crazy. You probably spend your whole life reading the tax law. But if you get the expert in your life, because you don't know everything. You hear things. Oh, I should buy a house. Oh, I should do this. Oh, I should do that. No, get some listen, pay now so that you don't have to pay later. So put the wealthy mindset on, and I'm off the box. Byron, my friend.
All right, I'm on the box. I'm on the box. Since we're talking about Black wealth, I want to share a couple of books that I think we should definitely get. One is this topic is Black Wealth by Dr. Bob Wallace here in Baltimore. Dr. Bob Wallace wrote The Road to Small Business Success, Black Wealth by Dr. Bob Wallace here in Baltimore. Another great Baltimorean, Reginald F. Lewis, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? Absolutely awesome book for anybody to read, but definitely for those of us who are here in Baltimore. And one of my favorites, The History of the Afro-American Newspaper. So this is a great book that I love to read. My daughter reads it. You got to get this book. Listen, you got to get the right information about Black assets, Black wealth, teaching us, telling us what to do. This is just a great time. It's an awesome topic. And I'm looking forward, and count me in for the Black Wealth article. So I'll definitely want to participate in that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on the Chicken Box. Thank you for everybody tuning in. And this is Black Wealth Month. Misha, you are on the box to do what Dr. Draper has asked you to do.
Indeed. Well, I appreciate Dr. Draper making sure that we get this in today, because we are looking at so much when it comes to Black wealth. We're looking at susus and how Black people have tried to creatively keep money in their community. We're talking about the history of Black millionaires and Black Wall Street and current millionaires and current pockets of Black economic wealth. We're talking about financial education. We are talking about it all. And we're also looking into the deeper meaning of what is Black wealth. Like we talked about earlier, what is the greatest wealth in people's personal lives and what is the greatest wealth for Black people in general. And when we distilled it, it looks like if Black wealth in particular is not necessarily rooted in money. And someone on our team said Black wealth is actually rooted in resilience. And I thought that was beautiful. And so I'm interested to hear what everyone else has to say. Please tell us your feelings. What is wealth to you and what is Black wealth to you? And send it to us at editor@afro.com. Again, that's editor@afro.com. And Byron, we are going to hold you up to it. You guys check out Byron's article that will be in the We're Still Here edition, because for sure, we want to make sure that you guys hear from the experts about wealth in our community and why we need to talk about it.
So Misha, when is that edition coming out, and how can somebody get a copy electronically or the legacy in paper?
Thank you so much for that question. So let me just I'm pulling up my calendar to say that I have the exact correct date, but I believe that edition itself will be out April 18th or the April 17th edition, but comes out and will hit stands on April 15th. So make sure that you are a subscriber. Don't try to look for it at your local grocery store. Make sure you are a subscriber to the Afro-American newspaper so that you can get the Legacy edition. And as Kevin always says, it costs you less than 2 Uber Eats. And for some people who like to ball out, it might be less than 1 Uber Eat. And it's totally, totally worth it. I wish I had them right next to me. But this Legacy edition is always beautiful. And the We're Still Here is truly a coffee table edition that you are going to want to keep up forever. And why not want something talking about Black wealth that you can look at 50 years from now and still say, this is, hopefully say, wow, we've grown from here.
Absolutely. Rachel said, share the subs info. Rachel is on it. It's go to afro.com. Just click right at the blue button at the top and you subscribe. But we really are not calling it subscriptions anymore. We're really calling it members, because you're part of the family. Members receive benefits, and you can get the physical or the digital version delivered right to your home. You don't have to look for it on the street, because nobody is going on the street and looking for it right now. So it can come right to your house or right to your mobile device, smartphone, tablet, computer, what have you. Just go to afro.com and check us out, man. We got a lot going on that you probably haven't even heard about. So listen, we got the wealth, and this is not an April Fool's joke, y'all. Okay, don't get fooled. It's April 1st, so when somebody calls you and they got that story, you really make sure they telling you the real, because it's still April Fool's. This is not April Fool's. We want the information about wealth and the mindset of wealth to continue, and we're going to hammer it home all through the month of April. And so until next week, Dr. Draper, Misha, my millennial friend Byron, are you Gen X? What are you?
Gen X.
Oh, thank you. Praise the Lord. Anyway, we had two and two. We're gonna circle some boomers in throughout, because they got that money and they wealthy anyway. And they didn't figure it out. They didn't figure the game out a long time ago.
Figured it out.
So listen, we'll see you next week on the Chicken Box. Be smart, be vigilant, and use your intellect over your emotions as you move forward today. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great day. Thanks, Jewel, for being a member. Bye, everybody.